chapter as written by Anthony Warner, who has written the book Black History Walks Volume 1. So he joins us right now. Good morning to you, Mr. Warner. Let's see if we can get your voice coming through. Again, let's see. Good morning, Mr. Warner.
1 2 1 2. Can you hear me?
There you are. 3434. Yes, I can. Knock at the door. So good to see you. Welcome to Barbados, first of all, and talk to me a little bit about who you are.
I run Black History walking tours in London since 2007. We have 15 walking tours, a Black History bus tour, and a Black History river cruise on River Thames. And we also have a school textbook out, which is used in schools right now, which teaches Black History at GCSE, like 16 to 18-year-old. And I just did a book called Black History Walks Volume 1.
Why do you do all that?
To redress the imbalance, because when I first went to London back in the 80s, I did a whole bunch of those typical London tourist walks. So you did the Jack the Ripper walk, the Dickens walk, whatever walk it was, and there was never any mention of any black, and I thought, this can't be right. So I actually thought, what can I do to address the situation? So 2007, I set up Black History Walks, and now we have like 15 walks, bus tours, river cruises across the capital, which tens of thousands of people have enjoyed.
That would have required, to my mind, a lot of research, as you needed to know you can't just take people on a walk and you tell them a whole set of fairy tale. So talk to me a little bit about compiling all of it so that you are competent enough to be able not just to condense it into a book, but to actually go on walks.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the first things I did is speak to old people. So I spoke to my mum, my dad, my grandparents, and asked them, what was life for you when you were like 10, 12, 15, 21, 35, etc.? And those stories gave me ammunition to kind of do more research. So once you get that personal story from people that you know, it sticks in your mind. And then you can do further research when it comes to books and lectures, etc. And then I combine it all into kind of a compelling, interesting story, which I tell in these various walks.
What's perhaps one of the most unbelievable story that was told to you that you had to check out and to document?
Well, there's a Bajan man called Dr. Cecil Belfield Clark from Barbados. He won a scholarship in 1914, right? Just before World War I starts, right? Or just before the starts, right? He goes to Cambridge University, top scholar. He then becomes one of the first black doctors in South London. He is part of a group called the League of Coloured Peoples. He's a founder member. This group is set up in 1931, and they actually campaign against racism, for equality, etc. They fight against inequality when it comes to housing, discrimination, employment. And he also becomes one of the first black people in the British Medical Association. He also trains doctors in Ghana. And he also invented a rule which helped children across the world. And this guy is not as well known as he should be. So he's actually in my book. We plan to put a plaque in his honor in April to recognize his amazing background.
I saw your reaction when I asked you that question. I saw your passion when you told the story. That's interesting. Why the connection in that way for you? That emotional connection to telling that story?
Well, one thing, he went to Comrie. I went to Comrie as well, right? And I did not know this guy. This guy was a legend in his time from, let's say, 1920 to 1976 when he died. This guy was doing so much work. He was working with people like George Padmore, people like W.D. Du Bois, the famous African-American activist. He was coordinating Pan-African groups. He was central to the whole fight for equality in the UK when it came to the laws, when it came to education, housing, employment. He was doing all this kind of work, and yet his name is not that well known. Plus, even to this very day, right, there's a prize at Cambridge University called the Cecil Belfield Clark Prize, awarded to the top student for biology, which is still given in his name to this day. So imagine he's a black guy back in the 1950s making his mark at Cambridge, and he's still recognized to this very day, but people don't really know him. So that's why I thought, let me put this guy in my book and tell other stories like that.
That is fantastic. And at that time, Cambridge would have been a predominantly white university. And so, to be able to be recognized still to this day for that kind of contribution, not to be seen as an oddity, but for someone who made a significant contribution to the development of education indeed. And so you're chronicling all of these stories, and you're telling it in the book, and you're also telling it through the walks. What's been the response to the invitation to people to join you on those walks so that they walk almost in the footsteps of those who you've written about?
Yeah, people are really impressed, quite moved, quite inspired. I've had people tell me they've actually gone to research their own personal family history. I've had people tell me that they've then gone on to actual courses to learn more about this history. and it's given a newfound sense of confidence and ambition with regard to how far back, how detailed, and how kind of inspiring the stories are. Because I mean, Cecil Belford Clarke is just one person. I could talk about Dr. Harold Moody, who was a Jamaican doctor who also was part of the League of Colored People. And guess what? The League of Colored People was first established at the YMCA in London, in Great Russell Street, where there's a plaque in honor of Harold Moody to this day. So you had all these black doctors working across Africa, the Caribbean, America, to kind of fight for people's rights, and their legacy is what I stand on right now.
This is so interesting indeed. And so this is in the book, folks. The book is called Black History Walks, Volume 1. That means that there are other volumes to come. Now, are there any significant black women of the time, and what stories do you have to tell of them?
Well, I suppose the easiest one is Claudia Jones. Now, Claudia Jones was a Trinidadian woman who came to the UK in the 1950s, and she helped set up what is now called the Notting Hill Carnival. But what she was doing before Carnival we came across is that she was also involved in fighting for people to get jobs on the buses, to get jobs in banks. She fought against racist legislation when it came to restricting the number of black people who could actually enter the UK. But she was such a massive cultural influence that she also established one of the first black newspapers, the West Indian Gazette. And she, again, brought people together, and she is another legend who's in the book as well. And actually now, she's actually taught at GCSE level in schools because of the other book I did with Pearson, Education rather, to actually kind of establish this black history in schools.
Well, you know, what your book serves, to my mind, is to help us to place us within true context. I mean, true context. Oftentimes we drift through times and spaces and we wonder, where am I in relation to? And now you see in the pages of your book, you are in relation to these who've gone before, who have done these outstanding things. A lot of times too, people left the Caribbean to go to the UK to study nursing. Are there any stories of nurses and their contribution to nursing as well?
Man, there's a whole bunch of nurses, because my mum was a nurse. My mum's in the book. And here's a story, like my mum kind of was sponsored by her uncle in New York. So he paid for her education, for her travel, for her dresses, and my mum never met that uncle until she was 34 years old with 3 children.
Oh, wow.
So he paid for her to go to the UK back in the early 50s. She then studied to become a nurse, and he sponsored the whole time. And so, of course, if it wasn't for him, I might not even be around. But then my mum has to go for the whole kind of system of working in the NHS, which was a bit racist at that time. And I talk about what she went through in that, for example, when she was trying to get a job as a nurse, she actually had to go to interviews. And to look after her baby while she went away, she got this babysitter to look after me, basically. And when she came back, the babysitter told her that the landlord would come around to collect the rent and said, if that baby, me, is there when I come back next month, you'll be kicked out of this house. Wow. So that's how his situation was when she was trying to get a job as a nurse, that she had a hard time getting a babysitter because this landlord didn't want to have a 1-year-old black baby in his house. That's how bad it was. And she had to kind of get through that.
Wow. No, I'm sitting captivated by the stories indeed. And that's so important for us to really get a book to see for ourselves the stories of those of whom you've written in the Black History Walks, indeed. Now, you provide in the UK lots of tours, not just on foot, but by tram, by train, and the different modes of transportation from spot to spot to spot. So for our viewers in the United Kingdom right now, you're in Barbados, but when you get back, you'll be, I'm sure, organizing some more tours, right?
Yeah, we got a Black History bus tour, 3 hours long, goes all over the capital, and we show people the Black History from a double-decker bus. Then we have a river cruise. So basically, you know, River Thames is there, and we have a cruise that goes from Embankment up to Vauxhall down to Greenwich. And on the way, we show people the Black history in the river itself on either side of the river. And we also have people in costume, in character, who play people from the past, and they speak on the microphone about their experiences and adventures. So it's and also we have a bit of music on board as well. So it's a combination of education, travel, a bit of a party towards the end. But it's unique, it's very unusual, and we use the funds raised from that to put up plaques in honor of famous black people like Dr. Harold Moody and also Dr. Cecil Belford Clarke.
That's beautiful. You mentioned music just a moment ago, and I wanted to drift there eventually, you know, because even in traveling to the United Kingdom, a lot of people from the Caribbean would have influenced the kinds of music that the people in the United Kingdom got to enjoy, and then it changed the sound of the music. Have you been able to identify any black people their contribution to music development in the UK.
Absolutely. I mean, in the book, we mentioned a guy called Edric Connor. Edric Connor's a Trinidadian. He would collect kind of folkloric stories and folkloric music from the Caribbean and then perform that music in London. And he was the guy who was in charge of the music selection for the 1951 Festival of Britain. And that's the first time we heard steel pan music in the public arena. So he actually brought in guys from Trinidad, and they played some fantastic steel pan music, and that then begins the introduction of steel pan to the world. Because once they established themselves in London, they go to Paris, New York, and you can find some of the biggest top 10 hits now have steel pan in them. So there's a song by 50 Cent called PIMP that's got steel pan in it. There's a song by Soulja Boy, I forget it's called Crank that has steel pan in it. But you can trace this steel pan being used in these big top 10 hits right back to Edric Connor from Trinidad and the Festival of Britain.
You're a historian?
I suppose you could say that.
Because what you're describing to me sounds like the work of a historian. Would one describe you as such?
I think so, yeah.
I like that. Very
I
honestly,
should also
very
mention one more thing about the book is that it's also on Audible too. So it's not just a textbook. You can actually, if you buy the book, you can have an Audible version just to listen to it. And it's my voice reading the text, the 90,000 words, 450 pages. It's my voice. And I had to audition for the role. So, yeah, I had to audition for it and kind of read into a microphone and stuff. It took me 5 days to record. But if you get the Audible version, it's my voice doing the talking. So it's quite interesting.
This is fantastic. It is such a joy talking to Mr. Warner, Anthony Warner, the author of the book, Black History Walks, Volume 1. You can get the audio, you can get the hard copy or soft copy if you choose to do so. And it is so engaging, so involved, so rich in history. And certainly as we mark this month in particular, Black History Month, and all through the year, because that's who we are. We need to know our past. We need to know those who've been a part of our past. We need to know those on whose shoulders we truly stand. And you can get a lot of it through the pages of that book. Mr. Warner, thank you so much for engaging with us this morning, and it is just awesome. I really hope a lot of people really grab hold of all of the knowledge there in those pages as well. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Ciao.
You're very welcome indeed. Anthony Warner is his name. He's the author of the book, Black History Walks, Volume 1. It's available online. It's available in your bookstores. It's available in audio as well. And when he gets back, more tours continuing indeed as Black History Walks are conducted in the UK. We'll take a break here. Oh, no, we don't.